The wheel of the year has turned at last, conjuring memories up from the past. The mother a circle, the father a line, the journey a spiral as these two combine. As bodies in heaven turn and revolve, so do our spirits as we do evolve. Each year we go around the wheel of the year, we move closer to love and farther from fear. And as the cosmic clock does turn, along our own journeys, we live and we learn. May's Eve is the halfway mark between the spring equinox and the summer solstice, and it's celebrated around May 1st. In the current neo-pagan community, the Sabbat tends to be called Beltane because the cross-quarter checkpoints, or the center marks between the solstices and the equinoxes, are derived from ancient Celtic paganism. Historically known as Beltane, Walpurgis Night, and later May Day, this time of year is known across cultures as a time to celebrate abundant fertility. Spring is in full swing, giving way to summer, and the blossoms are blooming, love is in the air, and this is the time to honor nature in the height of its potency. To acknowledge the life force energy of plants, animals, and people alike. May's Eve is opposite November's Eve on the wheel of the year, representing the springing forth of life as opposed to the onset of death. Naturally, a lot of the traditions of the dark time of year are about being deeply insightful, contemplating the meaning of life, and clinging tightly to that which keeps us feeling safe and warm when the sun is at its weakest. But now that we've crossed over into the light half of the year, our spirits are lifted. There's an overall feeling of weight being lifted off of our shoulders. We've had our time to be deep and contemplative, and we're just about ready to sweep away the heavy cares of life and have a coming out party of some kind. The astrology of the Scorpio-Taurus axis illustrates this perfectly. If you look at the wheel of the year with the zodiac wheel, you'll notice that May's Eve is right in the very center of Taurus season, and November's Eve is right in the middle of Scorpio season. If we think about Scorpio time as a time of darkness and mystery, and Taurus time as a time of physical vitality and carnal pleasures, then we can see these Sabbats as the peaks of those two opposite energies. It's even believed by some cultures that just as the veil between the worlds is thinnest at Halloween, so too is it thin again half a year later at Beltane. And some say Halloween or Samhain is when souls of the dead leave this realm, and Beltane is when new souls incarnate into the world of the living. Some say both times are fairy times, while others say that Samhain belongs to the ghosts from the realm of the dead, and Beltane belongs to the elves and fairies of the earth realm. Whether or not you take any of these fascinating ideas literally, they're both super powerful times of year to contemplate the important themes of the life, death, rebirth cycle. My 3 favorite themes to focus on in my craft at this time of year are fertility, connection, and the law of gender. Fertility. The spring equinox and May's Eve both celebrate the concept of fertility, but in different phases. In nature, the spring equinox is a great time to start seeds indoors on a windowsill, for example, whereas May's Eve is the time when it becomes safe to bring our plants outdoors, trusting that nature will support their growth. Obviously, this example represents a climate like mine, but you get the idea. The same concept is taking place within our own lives. Any venture of self-discovery that we throw ourselves into right now is likely to prove to be a highly evolutionary experience. And it's likely that the results of that transformation will grow to become evident both on the inside and on the outside. The inner work we've done all winter long is now able to shine out in our decisions and actions for the world to see. So here are some questions to ask yourself around the theme of fertility this season. Which of this year's intentions are already naturally beginning to take form in my life? Which intentions are taking more conscious effort to manifest? And what action steps can I take right now to bring these desires into fruition this summer or in the year ahead? One intention that's already beginning to naturally take form in my life right now is gardening. One of my biggest desires for my life is to have my very own epic ground level garden where myself and the earth can be at one. And my cats too, of course. I got a taste for it years ago when I was the caregiver for a property my family owned at the time. I did as much gardening as I could in that large yard for the 1 year that I lived there, and I made a morning and evening routine of walking barefoot around the garden, checking my plants for progress, watering, and tending them. That path that I walked every day began to feel like a magical labyrinth. Every time I walked upon it, I began to feel that Mother Earth was speaking to me, programming me to be more and more connected to the spirit of nature. I've since moved on from that space, and I've really been missing that direct connection with nature. But at that time, I vowed that even if I ended up living in the densest parts of the city, I would never accept a rental that didn't include some kind of private outdoor space where myself and my feline companions could at the very least feel the sun and air on our bodies and keep a few potted plants. What I didn't understand at the time when I moved into my current space is that there's a wall blocking my patio from the direction of south, which sadly means that I can only grow medium to low light plants in most of the space. But that didn't stop me from getting a perfectly decent harvest of lettuce, tomatoes, cucumbers, and peas 2 summers back by growing them right at the edge of the awning. Last year's garden, on the other hand, wasn't much to speak of, as I found myself too busy with other priorities to fully attend to it. And if I'm being honest, I'll admit that I was also navigating a lot of fear about the outside world last year, which led to a feeling of hibernation in a way, even though it was summer and I was making sure to get out for nature walks whenever possible. During that sort of healing cocoon phase that I was in, I felt extra sensitive to the noise and pollution of the busy area where I live, and it felt better to go out to more quiet locations like parks a few times a week than to spend my morning and evening rituals on my patio like I had done the previous year. Rather than regretting that time wasn't spent gardening or telling myself some story about how my epic gardening experiences will have to wait until I've manifested that perfect walled garden in a quiet, secluded forest of my dreams, I'm instead choosing to tell a more empowering story. A wise witch knows that we are always in exactly the right place at exactly the right time, with exactly the right resources at hand and in mind. This is a little mantra I've been repeating to myself all spring, and I've been programming everything in my life and practice with this empowering mindset. I made up my mind that this year I would make gardening a top priority. Not just to embrace what I love to do in the present moment despite the imperfections of my current circumstances, but also because a wise witch knows that it's by embracing what we desire in the present moment that we attract better versions of it in the future. And it's already working wonders. I'd set the intention to make the most of my patio for gardening as this New Year's resolution at the winter solstice, even though at the time I wasn't sure how I would fit it into my schedule or my budget. And wouldn't you know it, an earth angel that I've manifested into my life observed how passionate I am about this desire, and he decided to take it upon himself to both fund my garden supplies to make sure I get a better harvest this year, and to help me build a raised bed that'll allow me to grow as much as possible, while also hopefully providing a little bit of privacy in my little suburban sanctuary. My human design makes me a non-specific manifester, meaning that manifestation comes most naturally to me when I'm surrendering the how, as well as letting go of overly specific details of what the result needs to look like in order to be considered successful. Ever since I've become aware of this and have started challenging myself to relinquish control while also embracing my desired feelings in the present moment, I'm constantly being pleasantly surprised by what I'm able to manifest and how it never comes the way I would have planned it out if I were forcing it to happen in a logical way. This goal of being in a more feminine flow of receiving has been a bit challenging at times since I've spent most of my adult life feeling conditioned to not be this way, but I'm getting better at it all the time. Connection. May's Eve is about making genuine person-to-person connections, and it's time to come fully out of hibernation, to step out from behind the book or computer screen and begin to form personal relationships with nature and with human beings, in whatever ways you feel are most healthy for you. It's time to really enjoy the type of growth and expansion that can only come from hands-on experience. It's a time to find our tribe, celebrate the soul searching we've done over the winter, and decide how to express ourselves for the world to see in real time. It's time to get outside our comfort zones and let previously hidden parts of our soul shine out into the visible world. Here are some questions to ask yourself around the theme of connection this season. What experiences with events, people, places, and things are on my bucket list for this summer? Which summer intentions are absolutely non-negotiable, and how can I anchor those in right now? Going back to the whole non-specific manifester thing, I've kind of detached from the concept of bucket lists. Rather than making rigid rules or overly specific plans that I know will probably lead to unnecessary stress, I'm instead leaning into more broad intentions. For example, rather than saying, "This summer I will get a huge tomato harvest and I will celebrate by making a big pot of tomato soup," I instead say something like, "This summer I will spend time in my garden and will enjoy tending to it daily." This way, rather than creating an external goal that puts my power outside of myself, I'm instead setting myself up for success by creating an attainable daily ritual that can be its own reward, regardless of how many tomatoes come to fruition. It still allows me to set intentions and take inspired action on them, and it'll almost certainly have the added benefit of tangible results, like vegetables to harvest. I'm still setting a standard for myself with the non-negotiable gardening time. It just isn't giving my power away to outside circumstances that are beyond my ability or my desire to control. For an example of goals related to socializing and getting out of my own neighborhood, I can say something like, I will prioritize going on as many hiking and kayaking trips with loved ones as possible this summer, rather than, I will get out on the water with both of my siblings every weekend this summer. Because it's more empowering for everyone involved if I only make claims for and about myself that I'm in control of, rather than setting expectations based on certain people's availability or the weather or any of these other external variables. I'm realizing at this point in my path that springtime for me is really about balancing masculine and feminine energy. And not just in the prescribed ways that others have said is appropriate from a goal-oriented standpoint or from a spiritual standpoint, or even from a human relationship standpoint necessarily. For me, it's about completely redefining my own definition of success so that it puts me in my zone of genius rather than making my success depend on external factors. The law of gender. As humans, we experience our reality through the union of opposites. Light and dark, inner and outer, thought and form, circle and line, masculine and feminine energy. It's by combining these opposites that we create change in our reality. During the dark half of the year, it was time to imagine, to reflect inwardly, and to dream up the greatest possible self that we could potentially evolve into as the year would unfold. And now that it's the light half of the year, it's time for us to put those dreams into action. The marriage between dreams and actions is the union of feminine and masculine energy, which is necessary to create tangible, measurable results in the evolution of our lives. Here are some questions to ask yourself around the theme of the law of gender this season. What are my beliefs, experiences, and intuitive ideas about the nature of masculine and feminine energy in the universe? What is the potential of combining the positive aspects of each to create change in my experience? This balance of masculine and feminine energy has been something I've really become extra curious about in my 30s. I had, of course, already been aware of the concept of masculine and feminine aspects of nature and the elements for quite some time. But when I turned 30, I found myself freshly out of a long-term toxic relationship with a man and freshly out of an incompatible business plan that had really shook my perception of success. It really prompted me to take a deeper dive. Previously, I had focused mainly on trying to actively understand and balance masculine and feminine energy as concepts within my psyche as it pertained to my goals and ambitions, which, looking back, I realized was a very masculine way of looking at the whole thing. The piece of the puzzle that I had been missing had been the art of surrender. I'd thought that opening up to receiving meant writing lists of things I wanted and trying to tell myself I deserved them while working hard to embody the kind of person that I believed could have those things. But now I knew there was something much deeper than that, and that if I were to experience the things I wanted most in life, a truly aligned creative career and to manifest my soulmate, I needed a much deeper and more personal understanding of what masculine and feminine energy really were to me. I began researching and dabbling in a much wider range of perspectives on how masculine and feminine energy could be experienced and expressed. And I was able to look at my past career moves and relationships as lessons on what is and isn't aligned with my personal definition of a healthy cycle of giving and receiving, which in essence is what I believe is being described by the terms masculine and feminine energy. I realized that I had been suppressing a lot of my naturally feminine nature in favor of trying to be strong and in control, and that this stemmed from a pattern of not feeling stable, safe, or supported, which I had picked up from my own relationships and from the examples of relationships that I had seen growing up. I had watched myself and others oscillate between toxic independence and toxic codependency, both in our relationships and in our careers. I decided I needed to take time for myself outside of those influences to process, heal, and redirect my energy. I'd realized that even in my attempt to rebel against it, I was still subscribing in a way to toxic patterns of society that deep down weren't my truth. I dove into self-care and got really curious about the law of gender from an experiential standpoint. I researched perspectives about both the nature of the universal energy and the nature of human relationships, and I began realigning the way I treated myself with the way I wanted the universe and my ideal partner to treat me. And by giving myself both lots of space to just be in a space of receptivity and gratitude, and then taking action on the inspirations that came through intuitively, I was able to manifest meeting my dream partner almost exactly 1 year after setting off on this quest. I also began a massive phase of deconditioning from anything and everything in my career and life that represented patterns of toxic independence and toxic codependency, which led to massive overhauling my business plan and manifesting a whole new group of friends and colleagues, all of which feels 100% more fulfilling than the way things were headed before. This journey of understanding and embodying a healthy balance of masculine and feminine energy is to me the essence of life itself, and so I'm sure I will be on an ongoing journey with these lessons that I will continue to learn for the rest of my life. But I definitely feel that the biggest takeaway for me from this last couple of years has been the surrender piece. It's about knowing which parts of the experience of life to surrender and which to embrace as invitations for inspired action. It's also about knowing the difference between forceful action and inspired action, which are completely different and feel completely different and yield completely different results. It's a delicate dance that I know looks totally different for everyone, but I know for me it's definitely about balancing the head and the heart and always letting the most loving decision be what takes center stage. So, what are your favorite themes, rituals, or traditions for this time of year? One of the best things about our online magical community is that we get to expand our practices by exchanging ideas with others. So I invite you to leave a comment so that we can also learn from you. If you enjoyed the information and the prompts that I've shared with you in this video, then I would love to invite you to join me for a fun guided journaling adventure for the Maze Eve season. I've designed these gorgeous printable grimoire pages based on the concepts we touched on in this video. You get instant access by downloading them from my shop, or you can order pre-printed copies if you don't have a printer. And if you would like to dive even deeper into the art of manifesting your goals using Maze Eve energy, then you're invited to join me for this Maze Eve course that I've created for you, where you get instant access to not only the printables, but you also get additional lessons on how to harness the energy of the season in your self-care and your self-development practices, so that you're able to give and receive in a flow that's truly healthy for you. Each of these options are linked below. And I've also created this playlist for you here on YouTube, where you'll be able to find even more ideas for getting the most out of this powerful time of year. Thank you for being your magical self, and until next time, blessed be.